constituting child abuse or neglect. These include, but aren't limited to, restricting communication with family and parents, use of physical and chemical restraint, such as sedative drugs, use of seclusion as punishment, and gay conversion therapy, excessive use of strip search and cavity search, denial of sleep and nutrition. Many troubled teen institutions offer youth transportation through teen escort companies, in which minors are transported to the facilities against their will. This transportation is a service offered in the United States and elsewhere, and is a practice that has been criticized on ethical and legal grounds as being akin to kidnapping. Some of the subjects report not realizing that they weren't transported with the permission of their parents until days afterwards. Clients have been reported to being ambushed in their own beds at home, or tricked into believing they are going elsewhere. Those who have been in the troubled teen industry call this process getting gooned. There have been incidents where transportation staff have impersonated government officials. Former clients of troubled teen programs have made efforts to pursue legal recourse through civil lawsuits, targeting both parents and the companies associated with the program. This all resembles what Paris Hilton spoke about when it came to her experience at Brooklyn Canyon about being taken out of her bed, not knowing who those people were, put into a van and a car and taken somewhere, with no idea that her parents were actually okay with this. I'm going to talk about this guy named Fred Collins, but his experience. So he was 19 years old, which is a legal adult. He was forcefully enrolled in Straight Incorporated. He had initially been there to visit a family member who was enrolled in the program by his parents. Upon arrival, he was kept in a windowless room for 6.5 hours, and the staff refused to let him leave until he agreed to enroll in the program. At one point in New Mexico, called Deer Blanca Ranch, the authorities found that the adolescent clients had been shackled. Numerous reports have surfaced documenting instances of psychological abuse inflicted upon clients within these troubled teen programs. One particularly disturbing example of such abuse involves mock executions, wherein students were coerced into digging their own graves as a part of a psychologically distressing exercise. I'm going to share with you a couple of stories that I found from people that has attended these kinds of schools. So the first one is New Leaf Academy. So the story reads, we had a Dr. Hoshka skincare party where they gave us samples of rose body oil and lavender bath soap. I love that rose body oil so much. There were 10 girls in a room, all sleeping on bunk beds and sharing a common bathroom. One day I was drawing, and one of the staff named Jessica asked me to go to the timeout stool, where it was in the end of this very long, dimly lit hallway in a corner of the wall. There was chipped paint and blood, smears from other girls banging their heads in distress. They left me on the timeout stool for 2 hours until Jessica came back and asked if I knew why I was on there. When I said no and asked why, she just turned around and left. Jessica left me on that timeout stool for 6 hours, not allowing me to have lunch. And when I broke down and begged why, she told me that she knew that I took everyone's Dr. Hashiku's samples and put them in my cubby. I tried to say I didn't do it, but Jessica or any of the staff didn't believe me. After that, they called me a thief to my mom, gave me half of the food that all the other girls had. Apparently I wasn't the only one that this happened to. I and physical labor. I lost 20 pounds in 2 months, dropping down from a size 10 to a size 6 jeans. When my mom came to visit me, she noticed my weight loss and saw my ribs showing. Instead of doing anything about it, my mom took my sister to Disneyland and kept it a secret from me until I was 18. Later on, one of the mothers came up to me and told me that her daughter, Lindsay, was one of the girls that set me up, and my mom investigated and found out that there were 2 to 3 girls who set me up. School never punished the girls and never apologized to me or made reparations. I have food trauma to this day because of the incident that happened and severe CPTSD and recurring nightmares. So that's one story, and I'm going to read to you another. And yeah, that's very horrifying of an experience. Okay, the next one is, I was 16 years old when I woke up to 2 people in my room, a retired police officer and a beefy woman. I was very confused, and I didn't have a top on, only wearing bottoms. The man threw a shirt at me and told me to put it on and that it was time to go. I put the shirt on, terrified, while trying not to expose myself to 2 strangers. I stood up and asked who they were when the man threw me on the floor face first, because it was a sign of aggression. My nose was bleeding into my mouth, and he had my hands pinned up behind my back. He dragged me screaming out of my house and into a car with the woman who hasn't spoken much. They told me that they were taking me to a school and that my dad had hired them to take me. They called themselves escorts. I was uncontrollably crying and hyperventilating in the car, with my own blood smeared on my face and in my hair. They warned me not to run because they would catch me. Airport security questioned me in my pajamas and blood-covered face, but they had documents proving that they were allowed to transport me and to treat me this way. Only the woman accompanied me on the airplane. We arrived at the Phoenix airport. I contemplated every form of escape, but it was no use. Once in Phoenix, myself and this woman drove a few hours to this school. While on stops in her custody, I was not allowed to use the restroom by myself, and she had her foot in the door the entire time. It was humiliating. Once we arrived at this school, I was incredibly confused. They had a sign that said, "Welcome, Ashley." This is when my 6-month nightmare began. This school now goes by the name Sedona Sky, but I am sure the same abuse occurs here as well. They gave me a red shirt to wear and told me that I was on level 1. I was not to look at or talk to anyone else wearing a red shirt, and if I did, I would be put in a bright traffic vest, referred to as a silence vest, and I would be on silence, which is no talking or looking at anyone, for 24 hours. This school was considered therapeutic, but I am 27 now, and writing this, I am experiencing a visceral emotional response. In CCA, we had this thing called treatment team, where all of your teachers, staff members, and therapists would get into a room and talk about your progress. They would all sit in a circle, and then you would have to come in and stand in the middle. I want you to picture a teenager where a lot of us came from abusive homes or already had experienced trauma, standing in the middle of the room with a circle of adults telling you how manipulative, evil, misbehaved, and just bad of a person you are. It breaks you down. I remember sobbing, and they just kept going and going. I still don't understand what the purpose of non-confidential therapy is after receiving my master's degree in education and counseling. The same staff members on this treatment team could give you work hours for the most innocuous thing. I received a work hour for spinning in a circle one time. Work hours consisted of moving rocks, pulling weeds, scrubbing toilets, even the staff toilets, or cleaning floors with a toothbrush. If you received a work was thinking, why in the heck would a parent send their kid to a school like this? But I do remember Paris Hilton's mom saying that she looked at the website, which I did too, and it looks like a totally normal, happy, healthy environment with good morals and good intentions. But behind that beautiful website, it's absolute evil going on. My thing is, this has happened for so long and it continues to happen. Why in the heck are people still sending their kids to these schools knowing this information? Why in the world are these schools still allowed to be operated? This is physical, emotional, psychological, everything abuse. This is illegal. It just blows my mind that this is happening in today's day and age. The Provo Canyon School that Paris Hilton went to, it's still operating. And I'm thinking about the people that actually work at these schools. They must be literal monsters, psychopaths, something. Because I'm thinking about it, a normal, functioning, healthy, person that has empathy and care and kindness towards others would never subject another human being to that kind of treatment. It's total low vibrational energy. It's just insane. I'm thinking about how the parents, like how that one girl said, her mom literally saw her ribs showing, came to see how much weight her daughter lost, and then took her other daughter to Disneyland. How cold of a parent do you have to be? On one hand, I get some kids can be unruly, out of control, whatever, and maybe some parents are not really educated or equipped to know how to deal with their kid when they're acting out and they can't control them. But the worst thing that you can do is further traumatize a kid like that. I think, if I'm wrong, Paris Hilton, with her case, she wasn't even a bad kid. She just kept sneaking out and going out of the house, and then she was subject to this kind of treatment. Like, there has to be other tools, other ways. There's too much information and resources now. And it's sad that parents feel they have to send their kids away. And I'm not a parent, so I can't really speak on this, but it's just kind of sad to know that parents feel like they have to send their